So, hey everyone, Self Worth School is back in session. Pooja, it's so awesome to have you here. Thank you so much for saying yes and coming on and speaking to us. I've been following you for a while now. We've been connected through a mutual WhatsApp group, and it's been awesome watching your journey and watching your business grow. But you're our guest teacher today. So, can you say hello to the students and give us the short version of your journey from corporate into building the AI business that you've got today?
Sure. Thank you, Rosie, for having me here. It's a pleasure. As Rosie introduced, my name is Pooja, and I am the founder of PowerUp AI. It's a boutique AI consulting company based in Germany, in Frankfurt, Germany. And what we do, we basically help private equities, M&A advisories with AI implementation. Now, how I got here. So I started this company in May 2020. I don't think it was planned as such. So the plan was always to be in the corporate. So I have had almost a decade of corporate experience in Fortune 500 companies like Procter and Gamble, Continental, Henkel, and so on. And that was always a plan. But at some point, I realized that I am not enjoying that anymore. What I'm looking for is more autonomy.
Yeah.
And that bring and that happened actually during my maternity break, because that was the first time in my life that I was not working. I was sitting at home. And when it was time for me to go back, I was thinking, okay, do I really want to go back? What do I want from my life next? And this was a time when AI was as at its peak. And I have been working in AI for almost a decade now. My main career, majority of my career has been in AI. So that was a point, that was the turning point for me. And I realized, okay, let's give this a try. Let me try something of my own, because why not? And that actually grew into something a lot bigger than what I had anticipated. And now we are a growing fast, very fast growing company in AI space, consulting, very niche kind of audience on actual AI implementation.
Yeah, amazing. It's so funny, actually. I was recording an episode of the podcast with someone else yesterday who's in social media and brand strategy, completely different area. But it's funny that her pivot happened at the same time, basically being on maternity leave or becoming a mother and then being forced to go back to corporate. And like you say, that lack of autonomy and control over your life and where you feel like you can go when you're in corporate and a mother, as opposed to, say, building something else. So it's clearly a common or sometimes common path for people. And so what's something that people wouldn't expect or have expected to hear about that transition and how that worked for you?
I think more than people, it was something my inner self. So I have always been a very introverted person. I'm a technical person. I studied engineering, very focused on being technical. Introvert. I used to live in my books, in my own world, nothing too social. And I never thought that I have it in me to actually start my own business. Although I did study business, I did my MBA at INSEAD. And I think that changed my perspective a bit, that starting a business, because what's essential for starting a business, right? You should be able to sell your product, sell what's your skills. So that changed my perspective quite a bit when I did my MBA, because I realized that introversion does not mean that you cannot sell.
No.
And that was the mindset shift, I think, that I had achieved. So more than people, I would say it was something I overcame, like my inner inhibition of thinking that being introvert means I cannot sell.
Yeah.
So later on, gradually, I realized, okay, my strength, despite or along with being an introvert, is I can listen. I can listen to people really well. And that eventually became my strength, because now what I do is I listen to companies, I understand their problems, and I find solution. And that sells. So despite or being an introvert, I think it became a strength eventually for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of the women that I work with or that I speak with, and in fact, we were having this conversation on one of my membership calls last night. Those who I work with, especially those who are introverted, they feel like they've got something valuable to offer, but like you say, they struggle to put themselves out there to be seen. They feel like they need to be a certain kind of person in order to, like I say, be successful, sell a lot and earn a lot of money, as an authority, that kind of thing. Why do you think it's such a common block for women?
I think traditionally we correlate introversion with lack of confidence, which is clearly not the case. At least in hindsight, I feel that's such a wrong notion to have. Even I grew up with that notion that I'm an introvert. So it does not come easy for me to go and talk to strangers or talk in front of strangers. And that gets equated with a lack of confidence. But that's clearly not the case. I can very confidently tell you that introversion has nothing to do with your confidence. What introversion basically is, and as I have understood living with it, is it's about where you get your energy from. So some people, they get their energy from talking to people, talking to a lot of people, whereas introverts, that's energy training for them. So eventually what I worked on is managing my energy in such situation. It still drains my energy. Like when I go to social events, networking events, it drains my energy in such a way that I cannot work after that. But I have tried, like now I've learned how to manage that because networking events, meeting with people I have not met before is a very integral part of my business. So I try to balance that in a way that, okay, this drains my energy, but there is something that gives me energy, which is sharing my experience. For example, talking in front of people where they see me as an expert. That gives me a lot of energy, right? So that I try to balance those somehow. And I realized that it works. It works in the same way as it works for an extrovert person, because for extrovert people also it's the same. Something gives them energy, but probably sitting quietly in one corner listening to your clients, it's probably energy draining for them.
Yeah.
So you somehow need to find that balance in your life.
So it is being seen, it is talking to people, but it's finding either the subjects that you're talking about or how you're delivering it that speaks to the kind of energy and the genius that you have. Yeah, that makes total sense. So you've built a business now. You speak at like events and stages, you hold workshops, but you say that didn't come naturally at first, for reasons we've just spoken about. You've touched on it a little bit, but what do you feel has changed in how you see yourself and your work that's allowed you to do those things, other than that kind of managing energy and speaking to your strengths? Is there anything else that you feel has changed in how you see yourself or your work that's allowed you to do that?
Let me think about that. I would say at some point I have stopped seeking permission, whether it's calling myself an expert, whether it is promoting my business, whether it is taking that leadership role. Because I don't know if this was culturally, gender based, or whatever. I grew up with the mindset that I need permission. I need permission to be out there, to make myself visible, to speak out loud. I need permission for that. And that's something, it did not come naturally. I have to literally coach and train myself that I need to stop asking for that permission, because why should I, right? Why should someone ask? Why should someone give me the permission to be visible out there? So that I think was a big shift for me, to gradually, consciously training my brain that no, you don't need the permission. You have the expertise, you have the experience, you have a lot of credibility behind you. All you need is to speak up in front of right people on the right platform and be out there. So I guess that's a big change that helped me make that transition.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think it is a societal and a woman thing because, again, I've been having some of these conversations recently about having permission and needing that validation of people saying, no, people do want to listen to you and your ideas are worth listening to. And you are someone who should stand up and speak about this. Often we need to have those or have that as invitations. Otherwise, we might have those voices in our head that say, who are you? Who are you to say this? Who are you to say this over anybody else? And I always say that there isn't necessarily anything wrong with needing external validation to a degree. I think we all need that to hear from other people that we're doing a good job. It's just that we're the right person for a job or whatever. But it's if we only rely on that, that's the only time we do anything is when someone invites us or when someone says, oh, you should do that because you're good enough. That's when I think it starts to to become a problem. And I think you're right with the natural tendencies that someone who is introverted might have. They might be less inclined than someone who is extroverted to seek out those opportunities to be seen, because it doesn't always match
Yeah.
with, like you say, what feels comfortable, what feels natural, the kind of energy that they feel they thrive off. So for somebody listening then who, like I say, knows that they're good at what they do, but they do still feel that imposter voice, you're not the right person to do this kind of thing, or that
Mhm.
hesitation, how do you or would you approach that if you're still feeling that hesitation or still feeling that need for permission?
Yeah. So I'm smiling because imposter syndrome is one of those things that I believe all of us have it. And I've realized that it's not that bad of a thing to have, really. We always equate that, oh, I cannot do this because I have this imposter syndrome. But gradually, I realized that imposter syndrome is actually making me perform better, because if I have this imposter syndrome today, that means I really care about what I'm doing. And that makes me prepare better. So let's say if I am talking about AI on a big stage, that makes me prepare twice as harder than I would do normally, because I really care about this subject. I still have that imposter syndrome while before I go on the stage, that, whoa, oh, what will people think of me? Why would they listen to me? But since I have now prepared so well, I know I would be able to overcome that because I have that kind of preparation behind me. So, yes, imposter syndrome can also work in your favor if you use that imposter syndrome to drive you in preparing better about what you care. Think of the opposite, right? We have the opposite of imposter syndrome is something known as Dunning-Kruger effect, where you feel so confident about something that you don't even know about. That's the case with a lot of world leaders today, I have to say. But how is that helping anyone? Because you're just out there talking about something you don't even know about. Yes, you may come across as an expert to someone, you're not an expert. And eventually people see behind that facade. So it's good to have that kind of, whatever you want to call it, imposter syndrome or insecurity, that drives you to, or pushes you to prepare better about something you care.
Yeah, no, that's a really great perspective. And actually, we were having a similar conversation about imposter syndrome on the other episode that I was recording the other day, about the fact that really imposter syndrome is normally when you're going outside of your comfort zone or doing something new. And of course, if you are doing that, if you're doing something that perhaps you haven't done before, that it doesn't come naturally to do, in one sense, you are going to feel like an imposter because it's not something you're used to. But then the more that you prepare and actually do it, then you become less of an imposter. I'm doing that in quote marks, but you become less of an imposter because it's not something. I think it's just about new. I don't even think it's like imposter. It's more like the newness
Yeah.
syndrome. Do you know what I mean? It's doing something new, and you feeling like that you need to have been a complete expert at it in order to be able to do it, when actually it isn't true. Everyone's got to be new at doing something at some point. It doesn't mean that, oh, everyone's got to reach that next level or what have you at some point. And the only way you're going to not feel like an imposter is if you embrace that and do it. And like you say, whether that's preparing more and making you feel more like the expert. I guess the only red flag that I would have there is, I know some people will then over prepare to
Yeah.
the point that, it's quite stressful. I know I've had clients before that will over research, and then things take quite a long time. So I guess it's just how you find that balance. How do you find that balance between feeling like you have prepared enough without feeling like you're over preparing?
Yeah. And that's a very good point, Rosie, because I feel the same, that preparing does not mean that you keep on preparing and take no action. So, what I have learned in my journey so far is having that bias for action. And I have taken these words from Amazon, because Amazon has these 8 or 9 set of rules, and they have something that that's a company policy. It's called bias for action, and I really like that. So it actually, when you think about that, it really means that yes, you prepare, but you still should have that bias for action. You should still take that action, and you should not wait for that perfect moment or that perfect time when you're ready to be out there. In business, it's often or mostly it's better to do it than to wait for it and waiting for the perfect moment. Done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
So that's a good balancing phenomena that yes, prepare for it. If you care for it, prepare for it. Like for me, it's about public speaking. It does not come naturally to me. So I prepare for it, but I still do it because yes, I have this bias for action that I have embedded in my philosophy, in my vision. And I always have a goal. So for example, if I am preparing for a public speaking, yes, there are external deadlines, but internally also, if I'm launching a course or if I'm trying to launch something, I put a deadline and I just launch it in whatever format it is because I can always improve it.
Yeah, no, I love that. If you care for it, prepare for it or something. I love that. I love that little thing. So it isn't necessarily that imposter thing that struggle to be seen. It isn't necessarily something you overcome, but it's something that you find a way to, to
Yeah,
work with in a way that makes you feel like you can move forward. And like you say, you're not getting stuck in that kind of prepping or waiting for permission stage.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. And then, so tying this all back to self-worth, because obviously we're here for self-worth school, how have you seen this kind of link back to self-worth, the introversion, the struggling to be seen, struggling to be visible or put yourself out there, either in your own journey or with people that you've seen in your industry? How do you see it all relating back to self-worth?
Self worth actually comes from a lot of things, right? So let's say when I got my first paid client, that was a big booster for me. That gave me the confidence that yes, someone is ready to pay me, however, whatever the amount was. That was a big kind of validation in a way. Some other ways that I achieve that is being visible. Okay, some may find it very, how do you call it, very external validation, but sometimes it validates your ideas because if I have a new idea, what I'm thinking about, even if it is a contrarian point of view, I just go out and put it out on LinkedIn. And I realized that people actually resonate with that. And that eventually became my strength and my unique factor because I am not confining myself to what others are doing, what the experts in the industry are saying. I have my own viewpoint, no matter how unpolished that is. I just put it out. And that eventually became an idea validation thing for me rather than taking the social media in the traditional sense, because that helps me gain visibility. That helps me understand that, yes, my ideas are not that useless, if you have to say, put it very bluntly. People still care about it. There are people who understand that, yes, there are different facets to a technology, or it's no matter what the hype world is saying, there are still people who care about the actual work. And eventually that helped me find my audience. And I think this all combined to building a business, building a more journey, a visibility journey that somehow feeds into my business.
Yeah. And I think to be able to do those things, start sharing your
Yeah.
ideas, on social media and putting in those proposals, I guess you need to have that foundation of self-worth, because you have to, even if you're scared and you're not sure exactly how it's going to go, if you have that foundation of self-worth, and I always say self-worth is believing in that you are worthy and capable and that you are of value, you and your ideas are of value. And that is just inherent no matter who you are, whether you're an introvert, extrovert, or otherwise. So I think you have to have that certain foundation of self-worth in order to trust your voice enough to share those contrary opinions on social media or to make that pitch to the company that you want to do and get paid. And so I think, like I say, it doesn't necessarily mean that someone who is introverted has low self-worth. Like you said, it isn't necessarily linking necessarily to low confidence, but I think you do need to be someone who trusts your voice, who trusts their expertise, who trusts their value on a level, whether or not, like I say, you're introverted or not, in order to do the things that you want to do, to be able to be seen, to put yourself forward, even if it feels a little bit scary.
Absolutely. And I think this is a very important point or notion that we don't talk enough in professional context. That self worth is a lot more than what people say, the general notions that,
Yeah.
yes, as you mentioned, it's what introversion is, not being able to, it's being visible. So it's really about starting. And you get that self worth once you start, no matter where you are in your life.
Mm.
Just start doing it. Just start being visible. Just start asking for money for your skill set. And that gradually builds up because it's not an overnight thing. You
No.
build it up with smaller actions, with small achievements, and that gradually compounds.
Yeah. So it's a mixture of having that knowing in your kind of inherent
Mhm.
value and trusting your voice, but also taking that action
Yeah.
that when you get those positive responses back also validates that self-worth and that you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So what shifts then that you feel when somebody does start trusting their voice or
Mhm.
expertise and they are being happy to be seen? What shifts when you are taking those steps and you do get those good responses?
First of all, it's, as I mentioned, it's not an overnight thing. And that's also an expectation that you need to set right, that it will take some time. It will take some time for you, first of all, to be comfortable in yourself, that you need to be out there. You need to take smaller steps, baby steps, and that gradually starts compounding. And secondly, it's also about pushing yourself. Okay, that could be very subjective because how much you push yourself. Some people are able to really push themselves. Some they take baby steps, but at some point we are all pushing ourselves for growth, and that's growth basically, right? So
Yeah.
you are just taking those hints from yourself, from external environment, and building on it gradually, step by step, and putting it in a way that's helping you achieve that goal, whether it is starting your business, whether it is going for that next promotion in your job. But yeah, it's a compounded effort that starts from one step that you take.
Yeah.
Again, very important that you take that step no matter where you are. For example, I used to think that I will probably start stalking when I am at a position in my corporate job. But I eventually realized that's not absolutely necessary. Think about it. Even if I was a senior manager or a director or vice president or whatever, I still have something very valid to share
Yeah.
wherever I am in my journey. And that's what people care about because they want to listen to the actual experiences on how I reached there, how I made that share, rather than thinking from an expert point of view. Yes, experts have their place, but I think the journey, the actual journey, also has a lot of takers, and that's what people want to listen. So
Mm.
even if you want to share that, just go ahead.
Yeah. No, that's such a cool thing. Like you say, no, it's not waiting until you're at a certain level or a certain level of
Yeah.
expertise. It's actually, no, if you trust that you've got something to share, and you do it. And that's one of the things I often speak in about clients and in previous episodes as well is building that element of self-trust of being able to follow through on the things that you want to do. And the more that you do those, and that obviously does start with one action to begin with and then building that momentum, the more you build self-trust in yourself to be able to follow through on these things and to, like I say, trust in your voice and your expertise, the more that builds over time and the more comfortable it gets, and then the more momentum that you get and that grows.
Yeah.
Awesome. We've covered a lot so far as part of the episode, but we're coming to our main takeaway part now. So, if somebody's listening to this and it's resonating with them and they know that they need to show up more, whether that's on social media or pitching for better contracts if they're self-employed, or maybe they're wanting to move up in leadership and they're resonating with this, so they know they need to be more visible but it feels uncomfortable, what's the one mindset shift or the one lesson that you would want them to take away from listening to this episode? If they remembered nothing else, what would you want them to remember?
I would say just go for it. It's easier said than done. I agree. But again, start, identify where you are most comfortable, even though you are uncomfortable, but there should be levels to it, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about visibility. If you are not comfortable showing your face, just write. Just write. It's a crowded space, but still it will take some time, but you will find your place. And eventually you can maybe start showing your face, let's say once a month, here and there. Just build it gradually, but eventually it's something that you need to build. And it's not something you can plan by just thinking about it. It's a lot about doing and learning. So once you go out there, you will learn, okay, this is working, this is not working, this is something I can still push myself to do, but this is something I'm absolutely not comfortable to do. So there is a lot of trial and error, a lot of experimentation, but the bottom line is you'll only figure it out when you take that first step.
Yeah, I think that's a great one, actually. Just go for it and you'll only figure it out once you take that first step. So speaking of that, what's one small step that they could take this week to start being seen in a way that feels right for them? So some kind of practical action. I know you just said to them there, think about where you're most comfortable and test some stuff out. But is there anything if you would like to set them a specific homework task, what would you say would be a good thing to do?
I think it's about understanding where you want to be seen. First of all, is it social media? Is it more at your workplace? Is it more in a community? Wherever that is. But first, the very first thing, identify that place. And if you are not sure, start with social media at least, because social media is one place which is available for all of us for free in most of the cases. Actually, I started my journey there because at some point I wasn't sure what's my niche in the business or which segment exactly I'm going after. Is very broad. So I started posting on LinkedIn what I know about.
Yeah.
And that gradually over a span of 2.5 years, that actually gave me my niche, which now I feel is more like a blue ocean. It's something that not a lot of people are doing. So yeah, so that but I was able to come to it only after a lot of trial and error. But I started on social media because yes, it was not easily available. And since I started it during my maternity leave, it was something I could manage with my newborn. Something like if I have to give one advice, it would be identify that one medium, be it in person, be it online, what's available to you, where something you can go tomorrow and start doing it, but just do it.
Yeah. So find where you want to be seen and maybe think about one thing that you want to share or say, and just get out there and say it. Because like I say, that there isn't ever going to be, like you said earlier, there's never going to be a perfect moment where you feel 100% ready, 100%. You've just got to, like you say, you've just got to do it.
Absolutely. Just do it.
So final question for you, Pooja, then a bit of sharing your stuff in practice. So what's something that you've done in your business and career that was around being visible and felt uncomfortable at the time, but you're so glad that you did? Is there anything that comes to mind?
I would say, first of all, starting my own company, because I never thought that entrepreneurship is something that's on my roadmap, on my professional roadmap at all. And even in there, I would say it's public speaking. So I used to always admire people who could go on stage and talk in a way that others understand and they can resonate with them. But being an introvert, being not so good of a public speaker, I never thought that's for me. So I set that as my goal, that I'll start small. I'll start going on local stages where there are not so many people, but I'll start there. And that gradually helped me build that confidence about public speaking. And now I'm in a position where I can say that public speaking is not a natural skill. You can learn that. It's more of a learned skill.
Yeah.
The more you practice it, like a muscle, the more you practice it, the better you get at it. But it's about getting started somewhere where what is available. Same thing, what we said before, it relates to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone to become a speaker is one of the things. Awesome. That is everything, Pooja. Thank you so much for being our guest teacher today. I've absolutely loved our discussion, and I know it's going to resonate with so many women in the audience. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Rosie, for having me here. I really enjoyed talking to you about my journey, because it also made me reflect so much
Yeah.
on where I have come in last 2 years. So really, thank you for having me here.
Very welcome. It's been an amazing journey to watch.
Yeah, thank you.
So there we go, awesome people. I hope you enjoyed that episode. What I really love about that conversation with Pooja is that it reframes visibility completely, because it's not about performing or having to become somebody you're not so that you can be seen or show up a certain way. It's about willing to be seen as you already are and playing to the strengths that you already have and trusting that's enough to start. And if you've been waiting to feel more confident, more certain, more ready before you put yourself out there, before you make yourself visible, then take this as your nudge. You don't need to change your personality. You just need to stop holding yourself back and feeling like that actually isn't enough to do what it is that you want to do. You ask yourself, where am I currently playing smaller than I need to be? And what would it look like to show up just a little bit more this week? And if this episode resonated, or you know a fellow introvert, perhaps share it with them, someone who might need it, especially someone who's been telling themselves that they're not the type to go for these opportunities or to be visible. And if you're listening and thinking, this is exactly where I'm stuck, not backing myself, even as an introvert, then this is the work that I do. Through my one-to-one coaching and inside my membership, I help women to build the self-trust that they need to show up, speak up, be seen, and actually go for what they want. So I'll leave some information in the show notes on my programs and a link to book a free call with me if you want to find out more about how I can help. But other than that, I will see you in the next lesson.